Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here today. Just going to breathe you all in for a minute. So today's service was born out of stories. I have been facilitating sacred story circles for quite some time. And I found that when people have a safe container to share the stories that lie deep within them, something transformative can happen. We are able to release the story into the collective love that holds us all. Like that deep tree Carol talked about, the roots. But we need a place where there's enough love, where we can come out and reveal what needs healing in us and in the world. And we're a little bit like wild animals. We're a little bit afraid to be who we really are sometimes, and we need the quiet. We need the space to be able to approach and to know that we are held in this vast, cosmic love that will never let us go. The story, or the service rather, was inspired by a really challenging story that someone once told me. I was in a healing group with a woman who had experienced some physical and sexual violence as a child that was beyond anything that I have ever heard of, ever thought imaginable. And she said to me, you know, there's no public place for me to go and to be able to have that grieved, to release that, to let go of that. If you have someone who dies, there's a funeral you can go to and people can acknowledge and you can receive love and you can move forward. And her story just stayed with me in my heart for a really long time. And then I have also been involved in social justice in my life and hear stories of friends of mine talk about how every time they go into a store and their skin is of darker color, they wonder if someone thinks they're going to be shoplifting. And that story and so many others sit in my heart. And I'm not here today to make a shrine of those stories. I'm here to make a shrine of the love that we can uphold as we tell those stories and release the power that enables us to free the light and to bring about the justice and healing that's needed in our world. So I could talk all day about healing, and I'll try not to. Oh, it reminds me to set my timer. I always have to set my timer on myself. But one thing I know for sure, and this could change tomorrow, but that's okay. Today I know it for sure, is that all true healing calls us to awaken. All true healing is about awakening to who we really are at our core and a call forth to expand, to be the fierce, powerful rays of light that we are, in the many different ways that looks. So today we're going to explore how healing equals wholeness. Are they one and the same? Are they two parts of the same thing? We're going to take a deeper dive into looking at that, and hopefully you've seen some of the emails that I sent out during the week trying to explore healing from across cultures and spiritual traditions. And I know I won't hit all of them, so thank goodness for open mic, and thank goodness that we'll continue these conversations after this service. I'd like to bring a different kind of definition to wholeness than perhaps maybe the wider world might have. And that's a definition where wholeness isn't necessarily the absence of problems. Maybe it is. But I once heard a minister friend say that wholeness was a little bit more like making apple cider. Who's ever made apple cider? Anyone? Okay. Oh, we got a good fan club over here. So when you make apple cider, you take the whole apple. You take the bruised parts, the rough skin, the core, and the wormy part, Okay, that's where I need to work on embracing the wormy part. Okay, that's good. You take the whole thing, and by putting all of that in there, the sum total of all of those things is sweeter than any one part individually. And so wholeness has something to do with our willingness to be with what is and to embrace that which we would rather push away. Not easy work, but we have deep roots, strong community, and strong tools. And life is for us. So the Native Americans, I think, really have some profound wisdom if we're willing to listen to them on this. The Native Americans say that all healing has to do with bringing balance back to the whole. And I was once in Colorado and I met a Native American traditional healer. And he said, Holly, when someone in our community has a problem or is ill, we bring that person to the center of the circle with the whole community. And we all come together to bear witness to the healing, to the restoration of balance. And if there's a problem community-wide, we all come together and we all know collectively that it's all of ours to address. And we certainly know their respect for the environment and healing our environment. And I think they provide a role model for our individualistic culture that wants to compartmentalize and say, healing for this person is over there, healing for the environment is over there, healing for our politics is over there, and instead says, we are a part of one whole. So here we sit today in our brilliance, in our radiance, and also in our areas where we experience pain or suffering, either in our own hearts or in the collective beating heart of our precious world. We're not ignorant of the oppression, the isms, the heartache of our sisters and brothers around the globe. And at the same time, I know that so many of us, if not every single one of us, have had experiences of ultimate reality. So we have ultimate reality, and then we have relative reality. So ultimate reality is those moments when we are truly one with the divine. We are one with the divine. But the moments of ultimate reality are when we know it with every fiber of our being, and no one could convince us otherwise. We know that what we are experiencing is the holy of holies. And then, as the Buddhists say, we go and we carry wood, or carry water and chop wood, right? And we go back to daily life, and we sometimes forget. And I love a story that Barbara Brodsky told about this. Barbara is the teacher with Deep Spring that works in this space here at the Interfaith Center. And she described a time when she went to the hospital and she was in chronic, dire pain. I believe it was of her back. And Barbara is able to go into this space of connecting with ultimate reality. And so she was in the hospital room, and she'd just be sitting there meditating, and she had this beatific look on her face, and she'd just be, one with the divine. And every time a nurse would come to check to see, if she needed pain medication or something, she was just sitting there, in bliss. And she'd snap out of that and be in raging pain, wondering why no one was coming to help her. And they'd said, well, every time we come by, you look so, beatific and at peace. And she described that as, as our human journey, that, there's this ultimate reality and this relative reality. And as Ram Dass says, we're all just trying to walk each other home. And home is that place where more and more we know that relative reality is our reality. And yet, we also have our relative reality, which we don't want a spiritual bypass. And that's the putting on the euphemism that says, oh, just let go, let God, it'll all be all right. Which, of course, we know on some level it will. But I tend to hang with the teachers who like to talk about both ultimate and relative reality. Amachi, the great hugging saint. How many of you have ever been to receive a hug from Amma? So she's this wonderful black mother goddess who runs around the world just sitting for hours on end, hugging people, literally for 12 hours straight. And it's not just about the love in that interchange. She also donates millions of dollars to hospitals, to homeless shelters, to women's rights, to children's rights, to education funds. And she says, it's not enough to say, oh, that person's suffering, it's their karma, She says, no, it's all of our jobs to assist each other with whatever life lesson it is that we're here to learn. We're meant to be, as Mother Teresa said, the hands and feet of the Christ energy, or if your tradition is different, the hands and feet of love here on earth, and the voice piece of that as well. So I've just been a connoisseur of what this healing looks like from a very young age, and my timer will probably go off before I'm done talking about it, I know it. But, I grew up Catholic, and so my first, spiritual teacher that I encountered that talked about healing was Jesus. And I just was so curious about these stories. That darn Bible would not say how. How did he heal the woman who bled for 12 years? Did she just hit menopause and that was it? Or did he do something, How did Joseph interpret dreams? Can I do that? Can you do that? Do we all get those gifts, or are they parceled out like Annie gets that one, you get that one? I just deeply have wanted to know. And so I was born into a body that this earth suit has had some opportunities for helping me to learn how to heal. Not ones that I ever would have asked for, but from a young age, I began studying Reiki, esoteric healing, yoga, Buddhism, all of these methods to try and understand healing for myself, but also healing for other people. And I began to be fascinated that across all the spiritual traditions there are these stories of healings, just like I heard in the Bible. You know, Yogananda, the great yogi from India who came to the West, he healed a man who was on his deathbed from across town just by somebody asking for it. And if all these stories seem a little woo-woo, happened so long ago, not sure about that, talk to Joy. She healed her knee. Talk to Greg. He's been part of some great healings. Talk to your friends who've gone through the dark night of a soul of a divorce. Or those of you who've ever struggled with a child who has a substance use issue, or if you have, I mean, you're the heroes in the room. Mary and her birth experiences. All of you have these amazing, powerful examples that the divine is alive and well and able to heal in us. But the thing about healing that I've noticed is that we don't always get to decide how it happens, how quickly it happens, whether it happens over this lifetime or through millennia. And you know, some of the greatest healings are from people who died before the fullness of their impact took hold. We all can immediately think of Martin Luther King, but I go to thinking about Rachel Corrie, who's this 26-year-old nonviolent peace activist who many years ago stood in front of an Israeli tank like this and said, "No, do not bulldoze the home of this Palestinian people." And she was murdered. And her legacy is here to teach us that we have not yet healed hatred that perpetuates war. We have not yet learned how to dialogue. We're learning, we're growing. But she's like the bodhisattva in the Buddhist tradition who comes back to tell us there's more healing available to you, more freedom available to you. But I don't think any healing can happen unless we're able to let go of how we think healing needs to look. And for me personally, this drives me batty. I like to control things. And fortunately, I live by a river, which is my spiritual teacher every day. I'm just going to do a time check on myself. And it teaches me more about letting go than I could ever say. And there's an amazing movie called The Impossible. If you've not seen it, I highly recommend it. It's about the 2004 tsunami that hit Thailand. And in the movie, there's a woman who's catapulted into this tidal wave. And there are downed wires, and there are pieces of sharp shards from car windows broken off, and she's flailing in this water to try and find some safety, and she finds some, and she's able to hold on to a palm branch, and she stops and she breathes for a moment, and she thinks she's okay, but then down the way she sees her son. Guess what? She needs to let go. And she does so instantaneously because she may have just saved her life, but she wants to save her son's life. And so she risks letting go. And in a miraculous story, they're joined back together. And I'll let you watch the rest of the movie to find out what happens. But our human tendency is to hold on to preserve life. And yet there are times when we need to let go. So many times when the only way to healing is to let go. To let go into that forceful current of love that is stronger than anything we could ever imagine. But sometimes we have to shift our perspective to know that that's possible. We have to shift our perspective to know that there is a force of love that is ready, waiting for us, to hold us. And so there are a few stories that I'd like to share just about how shifting our perspective can help us. I had a friend once whose mother pretty much just shut down when her older sister died of a brain aneurysm at 13. And her mom just really couldn't be present with the family after that. And her mom actually died of a brain tumor. And when she died, my friend Laura found all these tapes that her mom had kept of narrating stories of what it was like for her and how much she had longed to really be present to her family, but that she was just in so much pain that she didn't know how. And something freed when Laura heard those tapes, and her connection with her mom beyond life began to be this beautiful gift that was supportive and nurturing and everything that she'd ever wanted, but it didn't happen until after death. And so sometimes we need to shift our perspective to see that healing happens sometimes in ways that we don't want. But it does happen. A teacher that I've been studying with, Reggie Ray, talks about how our body, this human form here, is only 1% of the larger body that we're part of. Think of that. We're like the tip of an iceberg sticking out of this huge mountain of power, of energy that we're all just learning to tap into. So if we can learn to shift our perspective to see that maybe when we feel like we're hitting our head against the wall, that there's some bigger calling that's calling us forth to open our mind in a way that we might not see normally. And one thing that gives me great comfort is that we don't have to do this letting go or this shifting perspective all on our own. Thank God. Thank Goddess. We have each other to help us, and we also have the divine to help us. There's a Hindu proverb that I love that says, when we take one step toward God, God takes 7 steps toward us. Whew. Thank goodness. And I once heard advice from a priest, actually, who said, you know, if you've got your hands clenched so tight around one of your problems or issues, and you feel like you can't let go all at once, just try one finger at a time. And I think for me and so many of us, that's one of the biggest obstacles to our healing is shame. I know for me, I think, why haven't I healed this yet in myself? Why haven't I been able to merge with ultimate reality? Why haven't we as a society been able to heal poverty? Why haven't we been able to feed the hungry when there's enough food? We've still got problems, but I'm going to keep going for a few minutes because I see we have a little more time. But this shame thing is such an important piece, and if you've never listened to Brené Brown, any of her talks on shame, I highly recommend them and every single one of her books. I think it's probably, if not the greatest, one of the greatest obstacles to our healing. To think that we are not enough, that we are not worthy, or to start attacking each other or judging each other. You know, we're that 1% of the iceberg that's sticking up above it. Yes, we know a lot, but there's so much mystery, so much mystery in healing ourselves and our world. And if there's anything else that my 18 years of seeking in my own healing journey has taught me about healing, is that we don't do it in a vacuum, and that we're all interconnected to each other. So we need to keep talking to each other. We need to keep leaning into each other. We need to keep leaning into Spirit. Every week I'm part of a group where we meet and we talk about how it is that we're healers on a healing journey in this group that I'm part of. And that inspires me. It inspires me. I have a friend who was born with a genetic condition where she can't be in the sunlight or fluorescent lights. And she did something to me that's just as miraculous as perhaps Jesus walking on water. She knows that when she's in fluorescent lights, her body literally burns and toxins are released into her liver, and she is in massive pain. But she has a son who she loves more than life itself, and she lives in a city where, in order to get your child into a good public middle school, unfortunately, you have to work really hard. You have to be really smart, and you have to be really resourced. And so she juice fasted for 40 days so that her body could tolerate going into the fluorescent lights of all the different schools that she had to go to apply for her son to be able to go to a good public school. Is that healing just about how her physical body was born? No. That healing is about the inspiration she shares with me and with all of us. That healing is about why our school systems make it so difficult for people who don't necessarily have financial means to have to work so hard for their kids to have a great education. Healing is about all of us coming together. There are so many inspirational stories of people that I could tell you today, how them just doing their path helps all of us. I'll just share a little bit of one more, and you can watch the video that I sent out in the emails, but it's of the man named Craig, who I know from Lansing, who has Lou Gehrig's ALS disease, and he's had it for over 21 years, which is nothing short of a miracle. And he types with one finger, and he has a device to talk to people, and he is tireless and relentless in asking people to call him and have him spend his days praying for them. And he's made a video inspiring other people with Lou Gehrig's disease to tell them, you too can heal. And he inspires everyone with just his sheer determination to be the light every day, when it's probably not hard, or when it's not easy to be the light. When someone has to help you toilet, when someone has to help you do things that you'd rather not them have to do. And yet, I'm not sure that I know a brighter light anywhere than this man. So healing is this powerful force in our world, and it invites us, it calls us forth, oftentimes whether we like it or not, to dig our roots a little bit deeper, to find those sources of inspiration that help to keep us moving. You know, it's often attributed to MLK, but it was actually a Unitarian minister who said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And if we think about all of the people in the civil rights movement, all of the people up until today fighting for justice, and all of the leaning into the deep roots of spiritual teachers that gave them the strength or perseverance to carry onward in the face of murder, in the face of setbacks, in the face of the daily news. We know it's possible for us too. Again, not alone. I'm so lucky to be part of this community. So lucky to be a part of a community where people will reach out, where people will pray for you. I asked for prayers this week. I don't like to ask for help. And yet, if we're honest, we probably all need help sometime or another. And so I'd like to end this talk by sharing a vision of a greater wholeness. And this comes from the Kabbalistic rabbi, Isaac Luria. It's called Tikkun Olam. How many of you have heard of Tikkun Olam? A few of you. Okay. So there's a creation myth from Rabbi Isaac Luria, where he said that the world began as this shining light, this vessel of light. And that light was scattered, and all the pieces of that light went and were hidden in the earth, and all matter, like shards of glass, in me, in you, and in every particle of matter. And that our task is to see the hidden wholeness in everything and to reclaim the light, to bring that vessel back and to reclaim the light. And author Rachel Naomi Remen, in her book, My Grandfather's Blessings, invites us all to Tikkun Olam, regardless of our spiritual path. And she says, it's up to us to free the hidden holiness in everything and everyone. Every time anyone becomes more transparent to the light within them, they will restore the light to the world. Every single time anyone becomes more transparent to the light within them, they will restore light to the world. It's not our job to judge that action. We're just here to be the beacons of light. And to do so, we're going to do a ritual today where we will take whatever it is that we need to release within ourselves or that we see that needs to be released in the world. And we'll take one of these stones up here, and we'll drop it into the water. And we'll release it together, knowing that the water, like a river, smooths out the edges of the stone in helping to perfect us, in helping us to come to wholeness. So as we listen to the beautiful harp music today, I'd invite you to come up in groups of 3 or 4 and to drop your stone into the water with the strong intention that healing happen for you and for all of us on this planet. And I'd ask all of us sitting while other people are up here to hold that intention of Tikkun Olam, to hold it throughout this week. We're creating a powerful vortex right now. Never underestimate the power of ritual to rock this roof off and to rock our world. So I'd invite you all now to come forward. And you may say aloud a word that symbolizes what you're releasing, or simply keep it in your heart. And come at your own pace as you will. Namaste. Enter rock for all those who do not know that they need something to release it on behalf. Thank you. We offer these to divine transformation, and we know that healing is present, is happening, and we give it.